It's a real joy to be with you all here in Athens. Over the last 2 years, the world began an historic reorientation of our energy systems. The COVID pandemic strained to the breaking point our traditional supply chains. Russia's unwarranted and illegal invasion of Ukraine broke energy-related supply chains in this region and sent reverberations around the world. And a continually more aggressive, autocratic and militaristic China ensures that many existing energy supply chains, particularly concerning clean energy, will face terminal decline. We face a great pivot point in our geopolitical energy architecture. 2 weeks ago in southern Israel, people gathered to celebrate peace on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. The evil Hamas terrorists chose this anniversary to wage what has been referred to as a pogrom, and I've heard the ambassador speak powerfully to this issue. This is so much larger than an energy issue, of course, but it is worth noting that, unlike in 1973, oil is not being used as a weapon, but oil prices could become volatile as a result of conflict. In 1973, America was the world's largest oil importer. Today, the U.S. is the world's biggest oil and gas producer and a net oil exporter. Yet America remains part of a broader energy market and subject to geopolitical events. As dominant as the energy endowment may be in the United States, it cannot go it alone. Energy statecraft requires a shared vision and execution with like-minded partners. Such a shared vision is not obvious or predictable or should be assumed. For years, the United States warned Germany against over-reliance on Russian energy. Yet, that gas fueled much of Germany's industrial capacity and jobs, which made quitting a hard thing to do politically. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, its second in less than a decade, we should remember, Berlin finally ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Russia's actions forced changes to Europe's natural gas market. Western Europe increased domestic production, including from the Eastern Mediterranean region, redirected American LNG cargoes, and prayed for a warm winter. After averting last year's crisis and with high gas storage levels, Brussels is wrestling with its midterm path. The development of the Eastern Mediterranean gas region is a bright spot in European energy. Offshore gas discoveries were at first considered too large and too expensive for any one country to economically develop. But by connecting supply to demand centers and building the south-north pipeline delivery systems like the IGB, Greece now serves as an energy gateway to the rest of Europe. Energy markets and future pricing correlate to government policy and sentiment. As such, Brussels should strongly support Greece in the development of the Eastern Med. To do otherwise strains credibility. War has reoriented the global oil markets as well and helped to catalyze a new energy access of Russia, Iran, and China. Although Europe and the US sanction Russian oil imports, and America officially prohibits import of Iranian barrels, these pariah nations face little trouble in selling to China. Beijing is exploiting war and crises to further its broader aims, including but not limited to securing discounted energy. Increasingly, China appears to be turning Russia into a client state. Beijing has long braced against using the global standard US dollar for commodities and energy transactions. Moscow has recently called for all of their oil trade to be settled not in Russian rubles, but in Chinese yuan. Some politicians have argued that we could improve energy security by accelerating the clean energy transition away from hydrocarbons. This is simplistic thinking that, today, could make free nations less secure and increase dependency on our greatest strategic threat, China. China controls 70 to 90% of the key minerals, processing, or manufacture of clean energy systems today. The Chinese Communist Party successfully executed a years-long global and domestic industrial strategy and now effectively maintains the commanding heights of the clean energy economy. This is not to suggest that the West needs to lose, but it does require a degree of sober pragmatism that too often is overwhelmed by the cries for greater ambition. We are in the beginning stages of the clean energy transition. Governments should heed the lessons of Russian energy dependency and not increase dependency on Beijing. We should develop clean energy supply chain relationships based on trust, shared values, and a level playing field, all criteria that Beijing lacks and rejects with prejudice. Europe and America are committed to the clean energy transition to mitigate the effects of climate change. China developed its clean energy capacity to reduce its strategic vulnerability to oil imports and assert control over global supply chains that underpin the West's decarbonization goals. Whereas Washington and Brussels work to accelerate net zero plans, Beijing approves the equivalent of 2 new coal plants per week. Last year, China permitted 106 gigawatts of new coal power generation. That's more than the collective generating capacity of Germany, Poland, Czechia, Italy, the UK, Bulgaria, Romania, and Serbia. Unless Western governments take bold actions, an accelerated energy transition could embolden China to utilize an entirely new quiver of energy weapons. In 2010, Beijing banned rare earth exports over a fishing dispute with Japan. Yet in 2023 alone, China prohibited exports of gallium, germanium, graphite, and Beijing's manipulation of cobalt market pricing forced America's only cobalt development mine to suspend operations. The good news is it's not too late. The United States, European nations, and other allies can build a responsible, secure, and reliable clean energy supply chain. Some may wonder, as we heard earlier, if America is up to the task, given the apparent dysfunction in our politics. This is an appropriate question. After all, not having a Speaker of the House is abnormal. Yet both Republicans and Democrats agree that America must develop a clean energy supply chain less reliant on Beijing. The challenge before us is not a messy Washington, but an unrealistic view of the true costs of time and funding and the scale of the energy transition. This will take longer and cost more than politicians care to admit. For the energy transition to succeed, our leaders and public must come to terms with the challenges ahead. Yet in the immediate term, it's unclear how the new energy access of Russia, Iran, and China might try to take advantage of war. Even less clear is how the US and Europe might be willing to respond. Democracies, especially the United States, have many energy policy tools to act, but politicians find themselves politically constrained by prices. In his famous moon speech, President Kennedy asked, quote, "The Congress and the country to accept a firm commitment to a new course of action, a course which will last for many years and carry very heavy costs," unquote. Transforming the world's economic engine presents an orders of magnitude far greater than putting a man on the moon. It is time that we get to work. Thank you.